the way a Donegal tweed yarn is made to create that lovely tweedy look in the fabric, whether it's woven or hand knit, is that the yarn itself has, in our blend, a fine merino wool that is then blended with what is called wool neps. Wool neps are a byproduct of processing merino wool into what they call tops, which is a long, straight, very well organized grouping of fibers that can then be drawn out and spun. So the wool neps are things that fall out of that process, and they're little nubbly bits. So they put it back in, they mix it with a fine merino, they throw in the wool neps, and then when they put in the silk and into that process of woolen spinning, the silk creates its own neps. All of those have different colors, and in some cases, some of our colors in Arranmore Light will have 8 different colors that go into the blend, and all those little bits create the nice tweedy look to the fabric when it's all said and done. Arranmore Light is a really good example of what we try to do here at the Fibre Co, which is to see what kind of fibers there are, how they can be blended together, and to create something really interesting. So if it's on your needles as you knit, it creates that real just strong delight for the knitter to watch those colors fly by on the needles, and in the finished fabric it is a beautiful blended piece for an overall kind of look to the color, but interesting, it draws you in. This came about in our early days as a mill. We had a very small mill and it was not efficient at all, and so we didn't pretend for it to be efficient. In other words, there were days I would sit at the carder and just take a bunch of fibers and put them on the carding belt and let them go through, mixing camel with cashmere and baby alpaca and silk and yak, and I wonder what this looks like, and spinning that on through and then taking it to the dye pots and saying, I wonder how all these different fibers take the dye. So that's how we started, and that's why so many of the Fibre Co yarns are blends of different fibers, because we wanted to, it was all a big experiment that had no pretense of being efficient. The Arranmore blend was taking, you know, kind of that same thing of saying, you know, we like to blend nice fibers, put them together, and what are the different ways that we can put them together. And up until that point we had only had worsted spun yarns in our line. So Arranmore Light was our first, or Arranmore blend was our first woolen spun yarn, and I knew that there were different looks to the yarn that we could get, and just the way the fibers are all jumbled up and the way the neps go in there, and if we did things with color and the right fiber, and that we could create a really beautiful look that is certainly not original to us. It comes from that long tradition of what is made and has been made by hand for a very long time. In fact, the mill is an interesting story in Donegal, was set up as a center of excellence for crofters who had their looms and spinning production set up in their homes. So it was not set up as a mill initially to spin all the yarn. It was set up for the crofters to come in and learn techniques to be more efficient themselves in their home spinning and weaving environments, and this mill would show them how they could do that more productively. But then, because Donegal tweed became a thing around the world, and it was more and more desired, and how could they do more of it, and so they were just trying to help the crofters be more productive. It's had an interesting history over the years, the mill itself, and now today of course it's not used in that way, and it's privately owned and it produces yarns for many purposes, but they're very, very strong with the Donegal tweed, and with our desire to always have a story about a sense of place, an inspiration, a little bit of our take on it, and then we get to share that story with the world.